everybody, Louise Plant here with my 144 topics, and this week I'm talking about the topic stepping into your sovereignty. The reason I'm talking about this is because this is a term that I use quite a lot, and it's a word that or a term or a phrase that gets used quite a lot, so I just thought I'd really like to expand on that and really sort of define, what it is that it means and what that is. So to me, stepping into sovereignty is really about you being centered and being aligned in your own space. So last week I was talking about grounding and about how important it was to ground ourselves. So this is, part of my goal and my message is to help shift the consciousness of the planet so we basically can just love each other and all get along. And part of the first thing I believe for us to do in doing that process is to allow ourselves to step into our sovereignty. And, when we look at word sovereignty, we can think of words like monarchy, we can look at words like rules, there's all these sort of words that we can think of that come with that. But it's really a space of knowing who and what you are, knowing where you are, knowing what you're doing, knowing what feels right for you. And I believe that when we go into that space of being in an aligned and centered space of knowing what's right for us, we instinctively are in a space where we wouldn't want to do any harm with other people, or our intent basically very much changes. So there's also an element of strength in stepping into sovereignty, and there's also an element of authority and control. And when I use the words authority and control, I don't mean as in a dominating way, but I sort of actually mean in the fact that you are in charge of your life. You are driving your life. You know what you're doing, you know what you're wanting, you're making your own routines, your own regulations. And when I mean dominating, it's like you being, how do I describe it? You being basically centered and aligned enough within yourself to know what is right for you, and not allowing yourself to be dictated by other people, by other rules, by other people's beliefs. And it's really you being in a space of following your own beliefs, knowing what your own direction's about, and really moving forward with that. So who would I want this for? I really would want this for everybody. I just would love this for everybody. Yeah. So I'll just give you an example of this. So years and years ago, when I was married, my ex-husband loved soya milk and he wanted the kids to have soya milk, and my kids in particular, drink it, it's good for you. But instinctively I felt that it was something not right, like it didn't feel good to me, and I could do a whole blurb on soya milk, but I'm not going to do it today. But all the message or the story is really about the fact that instinctively it did not feel good. So I stood in that power, and I stepped into my sovereignty, and I said, what? If it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't feel right, if there's something about it that just feels a little bit off, then I'm going to trust that feeling. And I said, well, if they don't want to have it, then I'm happy to support them in that. It doesn't feel right, something feels off. So therefore, stepping into your sovereignty could be used as an example of just being in your own space and being solid about what your beliefs are. So what is it? So really it is a space. It's a space that we're in, and it's really hard to define that space because it's something that, there aren't sort of words that we have to describe that. I lived in Thailand for a couple of years, and the language there was amazing, and they had certain words to describe spaces and sensations and feelings, like almost a combination of those that they had that we don't use in our English language. So we don't sometimes have the words to articulate that. So stepping into your sovereignty is a way of me to describe that, because there is that stepping aspect, there is that aspect of making a conscious choice to step forward or even to step back into that space of feeling, this is my thing, this is who I am, this is me being aligned. So, we live in a society where we tend to get our power taken away. We get our power taken away by our parents, by our peers, by school, by society. So we're very disempowered in a lot of things that we actually do, and that really is the way that society is. It's very hard to fight a system, because in fighting it we actually end up owning it. But when we actually start being mindful and aware of, this is what's right for me, and trusting our own feelings, so we will very much trust our feeling to someone else. So, you know, I think of an example, you know, a child's doing something and we say, no, 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 no. Like, that is very disempowering. That is pushing that child away from their own sovereign space. Like, that is their birthright to think and to feel and to do and to be whatever it is they want to be doing. So there are other ways of doing that, and other ways that I believe that you could do that is to say to the child, right, I believe that your behaviour is really inappropriate in what you're doing, so you have two choices. The choices are, if you wish to continue that behaviour, then please go and do it in your room or do it somewhere else. Though if you wish to stay in my presence, then stop that behaviour. That is not disempowering the child, that's actually giving the child the choice. You have the choice, okay? Then it's a conscious decision and a conscious choice. So, you know, we tend to go to school, we tend to get pushed into things that we're academically better at, not things that feel very good. So, you know, when I was studying and I was at high school, you know, it was all science subjects, it was all maths, English, science, history, physics, English, biology, all that sort of stuff, rather than doing something that I really wanted, felt I would actually enjoy because it was what I was academically best at. And then going through school, high school, college, you know, it was really a case of getting a job of something that I was academically best at. But it wasn't something that I really loved to do. It wasn't something that really, you know, made me feel that, yes, that's my sovereign space. That's me and my own self-authority doing my thing. So now, you know, I'm 50 years old almost, and it's a case of, you know, finding what that space is for me and following that process of actually doing what feels really good for me. So, you know, I believe we've all got our own gifts. We've all got this genius within us. And it's a case of stepping into that space and just allowing that to flourish. You know, and how can something flourish if we're not tending to it, if we're not watering it, if we're not looking after it? Sorry if I'm looking down, I've got little prompts down here. Because I like to explore what this means, you know. So, you know, we often see ourselves as less than. I did Earth Church this morning, so I like to do Earth Church once a week. And I basically go to Mother Nature and I pick a plant. And to me, the plant is my mentor, and I ask for guidance and I ask for help. And as I started to meditate, I actually saw and felt myself as being very, very small and less than. And the word and the feeling that I was having was very insignificant. So I tapped into that feeling, and then I chose to consciously change that feeling and to realize, you know, I am not insignificant, okay? I am a significant person. I am of value. I give value. I have gifts. Like, we all have gifts. We all have special things. If you want to know what your gifts are, then by all means let me know, and I can help guide you to that. So anyway, I was feeling very insignificant, and then I changed that vibration to the fact that, you know, we are gods. We are divine. We have access to that energy. We all have that potential within us. You know, we use 5% of our brains, they say. We use 5% of the abilities of our DNA. And this is, you know, something that really excites me, to be able to find easy ways that I can help myself and, you know, the average person into finding ways to tap into that potential, you know, to tap into that source energy and to tap into that energy. So, you know, it's ideally that we make our own choices when we're connected. Like I spoke previously, if you didn't watch the grounding video, just watch the grounding video. Because when we ground into that divine energy of what we are, then we make choices from that space. It's a very different thing from making a choice or a decision from a very disempowered space. So it's a very different thing. So tuned in, turned in, tapped on. So just get into the process and the habit of doing that. So in the morning I have daily rituals. I might chant things. I might self-talk. I might say things again and again. I might give gratitude. I might send love to people that I don't want to send love to. You know, there's a routine and practices. I can meditate myself. I center myself. I can do presence meditations. Like, there's a lot of tools that I have in my toolbox now that I can choose to do whatever feels good at that time. So it doesn't have to be the same thing every day. It can be just a case of, okay, reaching for the next best thing of what actually feels good and just slowly bringing that in. And that is a process, and it's also something that takes discipline. And it is discipline because, you know, if you do something for 5 days and go, well, it doesn't friggin' work, you know, what you say doesn't friggin' work. Well, it won't friggin' work after 5 days, you know. You've got to start making new thought processes. You know, a belief is just a thought that we keep having again and again, and we've got to change that rewiring, and we've got to change those processes, you know. Work that I'm not work. See, I'm going to picking myself up on the words that I'm using. Things that I'm choosing to change in my life right now is the fact that it not being work. So I'm not working on myself because there's nothing to work on. There's nothing wrong. What I'm choosing to change is to change thought processes and beliefs that I have. So that takes dedication. It takes commitment. Doesn't have to take a lot of time. But yeah, dedication and commitment for sure. So what could be the pain of not being someone who's in their sovereign space? The pain really is that we can become very misled by other people. We can become overpowered by other people. I've lived a lot of my life being dominated by other people, doing things to please other people, caretaking other people, you know, history of codependency, all that sort of stuff that's been happening in my life has very much led me to live my life for other people. You know, we do what we're good at school. As I said, we move into a job that we're academically good at, or that, you know, we intellectually are good at, but it's not what we want to be doing, you know. And that can be the pain of that. The pain is being unsure of what your direction is, unsure of what your leverage is, unsure of what your motivation is. You know, what is it that's I don't want to use the word driving, but I'm going to use it because it's the closest thing at this time. You know, what is it that's driving you, or gliding you is a better word, gliding you forward in life. You know, and of course the pain that's associated with that is that when we're living to make other people happy, we make poor choices because we're making choices from a space of disempowerment and misalignment and not being in that sovereign space. But when you come into that sovereign space, it's like, this is my birthright. This is what I was born to be. This is who I am born to be, you know, what I am. So when you describe yourself, you know, you're not talking about what your physical body does. You know, you're not talking about what you've achieved. You know, it's really a case of, you know, who are you? Like, what is that sovereign space for you? When you tap into that, what is that space that ignites you, that makes you feel alive, that makes you feel frisky, you know? And we all have that. We all have that there. It's just working through whatever's the resistance that's stopping us to get from that. So the mindset of not being in your sovereign space can be blaming other people, blaming society, blaming the governments. You know, it's everybody else's fault. It's almost this energy of projecting out onto other people. They did it, you know, my past did it, I was abused, I was attacked, I was violated, whatever it is, you know, using that as an excuse to actually, you know, stop yourself being your true self, your true guided inner self. So, you know, it is a process of projecting inward and not projecting outward, you know, and every projection that we have outside is always a reflection of whatever's happening on the inside. So, you know, we're not taking responsibility for ourselves when we're focused out. We take responsibility when we actually focus in. You know, what glides me through life? I like that word. Thanks for helping me create that word. So what is it that glides me through my life? You know, what is it that I'm thinking and feeling and believing about my external circumstances that is, you know, choosing me to behave and act in the way that I do? And of course, if I want to change that, then I have to change that internal dialogue. So we can also have hesitations. We don't trust ourselves. We don't trust our judgment. If we're not trusting ourselves, then we're not going to trust people externally as well. You know, things don't feel right. So, you know, so just really to sum up, what are the benefits of stepping into your sovereignty? The benefits are really knowing that it's your birthright. This is your birthright to be doing this, to be this. This is what you were born to be doing. And I do see this a little bit different to your purpose, because the purpose is almost like sort of goal orientated and action orientated, whereas sovereignty is almost like something that's innate. So when I mean the word innate is something that it's within you, like it's just there. There's no taking it away. I was speaking to a girl this morning who makes jewellery, and she said, you know, I'm doing all this, I'm doing market stalls and I'm not selling the stuff, so I've stopped doing it. So I just briefly said to her, well, maybe if you do it because it makes you feel good and not because you're looking for that outcome from that to actually make some money from it, or it's going to be a certain way, but you just allow that innate creativity flow. And part of our sovereign energy is about creativity. It's about being in that space where we're tuned in, turned in, tapped on, and we're just allowing our creative juices to flow and to allow us to do things that we do. So the last, 18 months or whatever, I've started a singing group. I've joined a rock and roll group where I learned to dance to rock and roll, and it's fun. Like, it's really good, and it's really interesting that doing that over a 6-month period or something, and actually seeing how that is just allowing my creative juices to flow, and how that's really allowing me to be in that sovereign space of honouring myself and honouring what I like to do and who I am. So yeah, if you want to know any more, happy for any guidance here, contact me, let me know. I do a radionic hair analysis which looks at a lot of this energetic things. What is it what resistance is there that's blocking you? I explore what your gifts are, so you can actually allow yourself to step into that space of knowing what your natural innate gifts are that can guide you to feel fulfilled and amazing and happy. So until then, I will talk to you next week on my next 144 topics. So you have a fabulous, fabulous week. So seeing you always in health and happiness. One of my websites is www.thehigherlaws.com, and part of that work there is very much about stepping into your sovereignty. Until then, you take care, and I will catch you next week. Bye.